Hi guys, how are you? New setting, but I wanted to do a different kind of video. I wanted to do like an uncut, unedited version, like straight conversation with you guys. Kind of like a rant, but a little bit devotional. I've been going through a lot and I feel like God has been teaching me a lot and I kind of want to rough it out together. Um, but have you ever wanted something like so badly, okay, that you couldn't imagine God saying no to it? Like, it's nothing selfish. It's not something that's going to hurt anybody. It's not something that's only going to benefit yourself. Like, it's actually going to serve God's kingdom. And it just doesn't happen. And it's something I prayed about, or you prayed about, consistently thought about. I convinced myself that because I wanted it so much, that God must want it for me too. And then the door closed. And like multiple times, okay? It wasn't just one time, multiple times. And not the kind of close where I was like waiting for it to like reopen, but the kind where deep down you know it's like over. You know what I mean? Because I've had this door closed multiple times like in my life, and there's always like that little shred of hope that like it might reopen at a different time, or you know what I mean? But like this time it was like a hard shut, and I was like, you know what? And I didn't come to that decision like overnight, like, oh, I'm just gonna let it go. But it was a really hard choice. And God kind of walked me through it. I actually had a dream that I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but I had a dream that somebody had told me to let the water run out of a tank and empty itself. And it ran all the way empty. And then I looked at the tank and the person was like, oh, I didn't tell you to empty it all the way. And I was just like, okay, I could just always refill it. And that was very symbolical for what I was going through. But I think we've all had a door like that be shut. Maybe it was a relationship, a friendship, a job that you really wanted, a dream, or a version of the life that you wanted, and it wasn't just happening. And whatever it was, you wanted it really badly, like me. And I don't know about you, but when that happens to me, because it's all the time, but I get really disappointed. And I get confused, and it kind of like throws me into like a spiral a little bit, because if God is good and if the plan and the thing that I wanted was good, why would he let somebody or something just take it away? Like, why would God not let me have it? And I wrestle with this question a lot, more times than I can count. For a long time, I thought the pain was coming from that closed door, that rejection in a way, because sometimes that closed door feels like rejection. It feels like God is rejecting you. And looking back, I don't think it was the pain of the door being shut. Like, even like right now, like what I'm going through, I think the pain comes from refusing to let go. I struggle to let things go. I am very stubborn. I'm very hard headed. And when I set my mind on something, boy, am I going to get what I set my mind to. But sometimes God closes the door and we spend months or even years standing outside of it. Like the door is here and you're just like, and God's like, come on, like we need to move, like turn around. There's like 5 other doors for you to open. And we're just standing in front of this one door, like waiting. And I feel like this specific door, that's what I was doing. Like month after month, year after year. And I was standing in front of this door and I was just like, when you're constantly trying to see if the door is finally unlocked, like that was me. And looking through the window, I was replaying conversations. I was reimagining outcomes. I was trying to go around the original problem, wondering if maybe we heard God wrong, wondering if maybe, that one last prayer will change something, or like that one last attempt might change something. And I know what that's like because I've done it. Okay, I've done it. And there have been seasons in my life where I wasn't moving forward because I was too busy staring at what was behind me. I realized that I was putting God in a box. I thought that God should do this and this and this through this door, that I was limiting him. Like maybe I wanted this door, but God had like 100 other doors surrounding me that were just for me. But I was so stuck on this one door that I couldn't see it. Because that's what happens when we hyper focus on something that God closes. We tend to mislead ourselves to what God really wants us to do. And I was too busy staring at the things that were behind me or the doors that were shut. I was too busy mourning and grieving what hadn't happened. Have you ever done that? Have you ever mourned and grieved something that didn't happen? And like we just put ourselves through this stress and through this disappointment sometimes. And I was too busy trying to make sense of what God wasn't asking me to understand. Like, Nicole, like God never called me to try to understand what he was doing. He called me to be obedient. He was asking me to trust him. And trust sounds easy until God tells you to release something you really wanted. Bro, just like, oh my gosh. And that's when I finally found out whether that's when you like finally find out whether you were trusting in God or you were trusting in this thing that you really wanted. You know what I mean? I remember, I'm like hurling going through it. But I remember this like distinct like moment where I reached exhaustion. Like I was exhausted, not because of the situation itself, but because I was carrying it every single day. I was replaying it in my head. I was thinking about it. I was analyzing it. I was praying about it. I was trying to find out a way in God's answer, and God had already given me an answer. God had already spoken to me through dreams, through visions, and I was just so stubborn and stuck in my head, and I was trying to figure out a way around what he was saying, and like, oh, maybe I didn't understand God right this time. You know what I mean? And one day I realized something. The door wasn't hurting me anymore. It wasn't. It was my refusal to leave it. Have you ever seen that image of like someone holding a rope and God's like, oh, let go, and the person just squeezing it tighter and tighter, and like they start getting like scars and bleeding like on their hands? Like that's exactly what we do. That's what I was doing. I was hurting myself at that point. And this realization has shifted something inside of me, because suddenly I realized that God wasn't keeping me trapped. He wasn't withholding something that I really wanted just to punish me or just to be mean. I was keeping myself trapped. It's like that image of a bird in a cage and the door's open. Like I could fly out. I could soar and like see the world, but I'm keeping myself in this cage because this is how I envisioned my life. This is what I wanted, and it had to be this way. I was waiting for peace to come from that door reopening. I was putting my hope in something that wasn't God. I was putting my hope in something from the physical realm. And I remember I was at church one of these days, and through worship, they were singing a song, and it hit me. It hit me. Like, dude, what I was asking for, first of all, it was nothing, and it can't compare to what God has in store for me, you know? And the door that man shuts, God can always open, but the door that God shuts, no man can open. And sometimes we blame the people around us, but really it's God using them to. I was waiting for that peace to reopen that door, like to like feel peace once I surrendered that. And honestly, I didn't like the answer. I wanted the blessing. I wanted the breakthrough. I wanted the thing that I had been praying for, but eventually I got tired of fighting. I got tired of fighting reality. Do you ever get to that point? And like sometimes it feels like lack of faith. Like, oh, like you only stop fighting because you don't believe for it anymore. But no, I got tired of carrying something that God had clearly asked me to put down. I got tired of fighting a battle that God never asked me to fight. I was fighting a battle that wasn't mine. I was fighting a battle that was meant for God to fight. But my hands were stuck on it, and God's not going to fight with me. He's going to be like, you want to put your hands on it? You want to do it your way? Fine. And then, you know, when you come back like all like, sorry, God, like, do you? And little by little, this is very, very little by little, I started letting go. Not perfectly, not overnight. I feel like I'm still wrestling with it in my heart, but I did let go. And there were some times in my head, because I still replay things, I'm an overthinker, that I was like picking it back up again, like, oh, but why? Like, but why, God? And we always ask why? But sometimes God's not going to tell you why. I always tell people this, and I don't take my own advice, but sometimes we have to ask for what? Like, God, what is the purpose? For what? For what did I go? Like, why did I go through this? For what? And I stopped asking God to change his mind. And I surrendered. I told God, I'm like, you know what? Like, this door's shut. Clearly, you don't want me to walk through it, and I trust you. I trust you, and I know that you're going to open the right door for me at the right moment. And his way is always better. His way is always better, even though we don't like to, wait for his way. But when I decided to let go in that moment, it was actually like during worship when it hit me. I just felt peace. Not because the circumstance had changed, not because I finally got what I wanted, not because suddenly everything made sense. It's because I surrendered. I finally accepted that God sees things that I don't. He knows things that I don't. His no isn't a rejection. He hears conversations that I don't hear. And sometimes his rejection isn't rejection. It's protection. It's redirection. It's preparation. And we hate to hear that. We hate to hear, oh, that God's rejection is his protection, because it's like, God, I don't want to be protected. Like, I want what I want, you know? But God is a father. And sometimes it's simply just because he has something different planned. You're so stuck on this, like, it needs to be this, that God's like, but I don't want to give you this. Like, I need to give you all of this. You ever see also like that image where like God's asking for like this little teddy bear, and we're like, no, but I love it. And like behind like Jesus's back is like this huge teddy bear. Like, that's what it is. That's what it is. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I've been learning in this season is that peace doesn't come from getting everything you want. Because you can get everything you want and still not have peace. Peace comes from trusting the one who holds your future. And I know that's easier said than done. I know that trust is really hard. And if you're anything like me, like, I grew up having everyone around me break my trust. Whether that was family, friends, people that were really close to me. And I've lived both sides of it. I've lived the constant striving, the constant questioning, the constant trying to open the door, and like, I've had to be hard-headed my whole life in order to survive, and I bring that survival mode into my relationship with God. But I've learned to live in surrender in general. This was just one more lesson that God's like, are you going to trust me this time? Like, are you really going to give it to me this time? Like, let's see what you've learned in the surrender process. And the moment I finally released my grip and said, okay, God, I don't understand this, I don't like it, but I trust you, I can tell you, it brought peace. It did. And if you're holding on to a closed door today, I feel you. And maybe this is your reminder that you have to stop standing in front of it. You have to stop checking to see if the door is unlocked. If God shut it, let it go. Oh, I wish I could like have somebody like when I was going through it, like shake me, like, let it go, you know? And I did have some people do that for me, but I was so stubborn that I was just like, no, like, you're making me question my faith. But God isn't asking you to understand why. He's simply asking you to trust him enough to just keep walking forward, to turn around from that door and just keep walking. Keep walking. Not because that what was behind that door doesn't matter, but because your future isn't there anymore. Your future isn't there anymore. God, you know that story in the Bible about the people who followed the cloud of God's glory? Like, we need to have discernment to see that. Like, the cloud of God's glory isn't on that door anymore. It's moving. You need to shift. You need to be so in tune with God that you follow it. You follow his lead. You follow him wherever he goes. Because sometimes if we keep insisting on a door, we keep insisting, the door can open eventually, but it's not going to be what you wanted. And you're going to get hurt because it's God's protection. And sometimes the most beautiful thing that God can do isn't opening a new door. It's giving you the strength to stop you from knocking on an old one. So I wanted to leave you with that message. This is way longer than I expected it to be, but that's a little bit about what God has been doing, God is doing, where I'm at. You know how we end around here? Jesus loves you, and I do too.